Hi, this is Justine Strohmeyer. I am creating a presentation on Module 4 and the relationship between the state and the arts. So, my opening statement today, the relationship between the state and the arts has been transformed from a discourse on taste and morality to one of economic rationalism and political collusion. I'm going to start by quoting page 10 of the introduction. We struggle to understand the ramifications of this conjuncture, weary of the pretentious and associations that feed the conspiracy of art through administrative regulation, the commercial dealings of the symbolic economy, the education and training of artists, and the influence of metropolitan critics. The autonomy of the arts is constantly threatened by the cultures of affluent consumers and investors. Now, why did the author write this statement? This statement can be simplified in 3 topics. 1. The government can control our artists and arts policy. 2. Education begins laying the foundation of teaching art through a pinhole, not broadening the spectrum, but only minimizing it. And lastly, art creation is dictated by the consumer, not the creator. The challenges that lay ahead of an artist pre-20th century were based on skills and techniques of the art to include the need and purpose to shock the viewers, to incite conversation, but not to create bans and destruction of art, which began in the 1980s. Judith Kapferer conveys the importance of why her article helps one's understanding of the relationships between the arts and the states. Judith begins her introduction with a quote, which empowers the whole idea behind her article, and it really sets the stage for what she's trying to convey and what she wants you to think about before you even start reading the first paragraph. Her quote is, "We are not going to protect art. The more cultural protection we enact, the more waste we have, the more false promotions there are, and it puts us in the marketing realm of culture." Now, when I hear this quote, I think about who's we. Is we the United States? Is we the art leaders and managers? Is we the government? And as Judith goes into the rest of her introduction and onto the next few chapters, she really separates the two so we can start thinking about who's we and why are we marketing in the realm of culture and not creating art for art's sake. Now, unfortunately, I think this sets the stage for disappointment. We are transitioning, if not already there, to a world where art is losing the battle with the state and the state of the culture. And as a society, we are learning acceptance. If we accept the truths put before us, we can better understand the trends of the arts and arts policy. We can better understand the way artists are creating and how and why they're creating. With acceptance, we might be able to create solutions to the tame problems before reaching out to solve the wicked problem Kapferer lays before us. Now, after we understand the relationship and the importance between the arts and the state, we then can really delve into the arts and the cultural policy and how that ties into the role of the arts leaders and managers, as I stated before, in the who is we. Her statement allows us to concentrate on why the arts policies are changing rapidly in the United States. The policies are adapting to the changing culture and policy. The times are changing in the US, for example. The millennials and the baby boomers are clashing between agendas and ideal norms, and this is spiraling into all aspects of the government, not just the arts policy and how cultural policy is being affected. This can be seen in examples from the current and past presidential elections to the formation of public protests based on those presidential elections and how those presidents are performing as our commander-in-chief. The agendas of these different cultural groups, such as the millennials and the baby boomers, and even the smaller cultural groups, things like Black Lives Matter, can put arts leaders and managers in a difficult position. CAFR explains on page 25 of the article, in case you want to follow along, that we live in a fully media-oriented world, and that allows for art to be seen anywhere in the world for all audiences. And if I'm creating a piece of artwork that's to be shown at a state fair or a festival, that might only be meant for that audience that I'm viewing it for. It might not be meant for people on the West Coast or in inner city Harlem or Detroit, because they can maybe not relate to the same cultural norms that the society I'm presenting my audience in. From the early 1940s, though, the artists had only had the agenda of the same thing I just explained. Their agenda was to show to audiences that they were presenting directly in front of. No one could pull out a cell phone and could take a picture of the artwork and send it, or the media and advertisement was only in paper format. Maybe it was not on the news, on the local news, on the national news, or even as far as taking it to social media, Facebook, Instagram. These things weren't around in the 1940s, 1950s, 1980s, and the artist's agenda was not to hit every home in the United States. Might only have been to hit the rural farmers in Southeast Ohio, or the coal miners and the steel workers of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. So with this fully media-oriented world, artists might not intend for other people in other countries or other states or cultural backgrounds to see their artwork, but it will happen. And that's where we have these different cultural groups having different agendas, and that makes it difficult for arts leaders and managers to decipher when and how artwork should be displayed. Is it only media only on social media? Is it full media? Is it news media? That gives the arts and the arts leaders a lot to think about. So if those art leaders and managers can learn the act of persuasion, then they might be able to hit a broader group of people, a broader audience, and they won't necessarily hurt those people's feelings, or they won't put their program at stake based on the certain types of audiences they're reaching. Hi, so I'm going to surmise this presentation by bringing us back to Judith's original quote she led off with in her introduction. We are not going to protect art. The more cultural protection we enact, the more waste we have, the more false promotions there are. And it puts us in the marketing realm of culture. So the opening statement talked about the economic rationalism and the political collusion. So based on our current economy and political state, us as artists, us as arts leaders and managers, need to determine what's the appropriate course of action for getting across our information, our policies, our foundations that we build our artwork or art programs on. And in Judith's paper on page 26, she states that now national means that artists have to adjust to the demands of many interest groups and the recipient community in particular. That is democracy. More struggles, more debate, more compromises. So unfortunately, I don't foresee the U.S. getting out of this compromise, debate, active persuasion. I think we just need to educate the broader body of individuals in the United States, and with more education and more construct, we can lay the foundation for why arts policy is important, why public art is important, and maybe we can help educate those individuals that see it as distasteful or in a way harming their private interests.